Hello and welcome to the Behind the Beat podcast with me, Katie Russell from Planet Drum Music School in London. Join us as we talk to special guests and industry professionals about all things music. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Behind the Beat podcast with me, Katie Russell. Today we have a very special guest. Robert Castelli is on with us today. We're also joined by Alain Morel, the Planet Drum founder. He's done some masterclasses with us in the past, but I will I'll let him take over and tell you a little bit more about himself. So welcome, Rob. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. And Alan, great to see you and be with you again.
Good. It's good to see you again.
For everything in the past. Well, actually, I just did a proper website, and I was thinking about my father because my father was a professional drummer and member of the American Federation of Musicians in New York City and Westchester County, which is just outside New York City. And his I had learned a little bit later in life that his brother was also a member and a drummer, and they used to sub for each other at times. But how I kind of got started was my dad was still gigging regularly when I was a kid, and he used to keep his drums stored behind the closet in my brother's room. But when he came in at 2:00 in the morning, he didn't want to go through the closet. So he put the drums in the middle of the room. So I would wake up and the drums are like unpacked or packed. So it was like Christmas for me. And in those days, there was not really proper cases like today. So the hi-hat, my father was a little bit lazy. He didn't even take the cymbals off the stand. He just undid the legs and laid it down on the floor. So the first thing I did was put the thing up, the hi-hat, and my instinct was to play it with my right foot. And I think this is how I became a lefty drummer, because I'm not lefty at anything else.
Right. Okay.
And so I used to play the exact opposite of, say, Billy Cobham, Lenny White, Simon Phillips, where I lead with my right hand, but my drums go to the left and I'm playing with my left foot. And as a result, I kick with my left foot. I don't do anything lefty, except I always tell the story, and you're going to have to interrupt me because I have a tendency to yammer on, you know. But when I was young, I worked in a country club. Sleepy Hollow Country Club was a really swanky place, you know, and they were having like a fox hunting ball and 250 guests, and I cut meat with my left hand. But when you set a table, you have to put the knife on the right. So if you know a proper table setting, you have 2 forks, 2 spoons, the knives, etc. I set the whole thing up on the opposite side because I'm lefty. And the manager came in screaming his head off, "They're going to be here in 10 minutes. Who did this?" You know? So this is the only other significant thing that I say that I do lefty is cut meat and kick, and now play drums.
Okay, so you are ambidextrous, really, in a way.
Yeah, I've been a guitar player since I'm 14 years old. I play the guitar righty, but I always ask, how come there are no lefty piano players?
Very true.
Yeah.
That was another thing I was going to ask, actually. So that's how you got into drumming, basically through your dad.
Yeah, and I don't know if I was trying to be like my dad, because, you know, my dad was obviously really into drums, and when Buddy Rich or somebody was on TV, he'd say, "Hey, come on, you got to watch this," you know. So I got the bug. Actually, what I started to tell was I wrote the first blog for my webpage because I just did a new webpage. I'm in promo mode because I have new music, etc. And the first time I was on stage, and the title of the blog is How I Got the Bug. So my father let me play his snare drum eventually. I went from just the hi-hat to the snare drum and the hi-hat, but he wouldn't let me set up his drums. They're Radio King drums, and I still have the snare drum. So
I have one.
Yeah, wow. It's pre-1940, the one I have. So my father and one of his colleagues, a female pianist who was a member of the AFM, sponsored an African diplomat to come and do like a cultural and musical exchange. And he brought indigenous drums. One was just a djembe with a zebra skin head, but one was so big and round, it had 4 legs. It was like a coffee table. It was like a timpani drum, for example, but with a zebra skin head. So my brother at the time was a prodigious bongo player. He was known in town, and he was like, I don't know, 12 years old. I was 8 years old when this happened. And my father's friend Dottie's son was a proper drum set or trap drum player. So they informed us there's going to be a performance and we want you to perform. And I'm like, wow, you know, and then they told me there's not enough drums. So I had to play claves. But I was like, so I'm dating myself now, and I don't mind saying, you know, I'm not the youngest person now. But at the time, Manu Dibango's Soul Makusa was storming the radio in the United States. So I was really into drumming, rhythm, and African rhythms. So I tell the story that, you know, we rehearsed a little bit, and then we're on the night of the performance, and we play The Lion Sleeps Tonight. And when we're finished, and we're just kids, and when we're finished, there's this infinitesimal pause, and we were like really nervous, and all of a sudden the place went bananas. And I said, that's when I got the bug. I'm hooked for life, for music, for performance, for drumming especially, and African rhythms, because in the reviews I've got in the past, and especially in this one, they mention Afro-Cuban rhythms, African rhythms, Latin rhythms, which growing up in New York, we had, it's like, I guess, growing up in London where it's very multicultural, and the music is all over the radio and television. And if you're a drummer, how can you not? Do you folks know who Abbott and Costello were? Abbott and Costello were a comedy duo in the 40s, and they had TV and movies. And they did this one thing during the mambo craze. They're working, I think, at the Copacabana in New York. And he's carrying a tray of food, but the band is playing, and he starts shaking his leg, and he says, "Make it stop, make it stop." This is how rhythm affected me, but especially African, Latin, and Afro-Cuban rhythms. You know, if you don't feel that, you need to check your pulse, because you might be dead. You know?
Amazing, definitely. So do you play any other instruments? You said you play guitar as well. I
play guitar, and my dream was to score film. Okay. I always thought of and approached drumming in an orchestral way. My father used to say drums are meant to be felt, not heard. But of course, Gene Krupa came along, and then Buddy Rich, and my father loved Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa. But so I actually got accepted to Berklee College of Music to study film scoring, but I couldn't go because I didn't have money. So I started playing guitar when I was 14, and I remember my father, when he got married, got a proper day job. My father was 40 when he got married, and I was born when he was 45. So he worked at a music publishing house called G. Shermer's, which evolved into a musical instrument store and record store. So I got all of my records in the beginning from this. I have like old Chicoria charts that are out of date, out of print now. But I asked them to bring home a guitar. And my bedroom was upstairs. And my father would work really long hours, so he didn't want to come up the stairs a lot. So he would just talk to me from downstairs. So I'll never forget the look on his face. He was like, "Well, what do you want to be, a drummer or a guitar player?" And I know he was going to be so disappointed if I wanted to be a guitar player, because I just wanted to be a poser, you know, like, I'm so cool, look at me. And I said, "I want to play both." And he goes, "Oh, okay." You know,
fair enough.
So with drumming too, I didn't actually I started playing when I was 8, but I didn't take my first lesson until I was 16.
Wow. And
I started gigging when I was 14. And I didn't read, but playing for so long helped me read, because I could already feel the beat. So once I could understand, my timing and reading it just fell right into place.
Yeah.
Like most guitar players, I'm not the best reader on the guitar. I can't sight read. You know that joke, how do you get a guitar player to stop playing? Put a piece of music in front of him. And you know the old drummer joke, "Son, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a drummer." don't be silly, son. You can't do both.
That's good. That's a good one.
No, so yeah, I don't play the keyboard, and the only reason I don't is when I was going to university, the first Casio keyboard had come out, but it was $600 and we had no money. So I really regret, because I write for saxophone, but I write it in guitar keys. So it's really terrible for horn players, because I don't have that harmony sense that you get from the keyboard, So
yeah. I was actually going to ask, do you write music? Because you said you wanted to sort of do scores for film and stuff.
Yeah. I have some friends in New York. We have Broadway, we have off Broadway, and we officially have off Broadway.
What's the difference between Broadway and off Broadway?
Budget,
right,
and talent.
Yeah.
But I did something that we would call off Broadway.
Okay.
But some of the people are actually members of Actors Equity and SOG and stuff. And that was my first experience doing music for theater. So I had written, which basically I just played, but it wasn't improvisation. It was all percussion score. And the director of this theater group, his day job was at Lincoln Center. So he could sign out any musical instrument that was not being used by Lincoln Center. So I was in heaven. I was like chimes, xylophone here, timpani there. And that got me to really self-study writing, orchestration, harmony, etc. And I always think of music as the whole. I never approach music from the instrument.
Yeah.
Like I tell my students, practice like hell, get your technique together, but let the music tell you what to play. And then you will know,
Yeah.
Not technique first. But you need technique. Yeah,
exactly. I think me and Ilan were sort of talking about that in the podcast with you, isn't it, Ilan?
Yeah. I mean, what is technique as well? Because, you look at the moment, I'm always trying new things. I've started taking Indian tabla lessons.
Wow.
With this guy. And man, it's a different world,
Totally.
It's completely different, right? I also I've been playing congos for a while, and so I'm used to, there are really different approaches to different instruments. Like, congos, you use your arms,
right.
In drumming, you used to taught to use your wrists, and when you start playing tablas, it's very much your fingers and stuff. So at the end of the day, what is technique, especially if you're a versatile musician playing lots of different instruments and wanting to try new things. And you find that, some of the most interesting musicians are actually people like you who set up the drums the wrong way when they started, like, Mark Craney and people like that,
Yeah.
And came up with really interesting stuff, you know what I mean? And also, if you think about Monk, who played with flat fingers on the piano and got that great sound,
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing to talk about, technique. What is technique?
It's interesting that you say that, because I really want to. I'm going to really try to write an instructional book and DVD, and I'm going to change the word technique to movement, because
great idea. Yeah.
One of the things I ask, and I don't want to give this away because I'm doing some clinics when I go over there. I ask students, like Don Famularo asks, "Why did you get into drums?" I ask, "What is rhythm?" Rhythm is movement, which is exactly why all beginner drummers, when they do a fill, don't come back in the time, because they don't get the movement.
Yeah, and where do you get the movement from? You get the movement from the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then your body has to react. So like you just said, it's fingers, arms, whatever. So when you're playing the drums, you're moving your arm, you're playing with your wrist, and your fingers are controlling, and it's all kind of interlocked, and you have to practice those movements. And the more you practice those movements, the more you can do. I mean,
I like that, because the word technique can actually be quite scary to a lot of people, especially people who are just starting to learn drums.
Yeah, but I was about to say, one of your countrymen, Alan, I know you're French. But Bill Bruford was doing the clinic circuit, and there were people like, I won't name names. Well, I can name names. People like Virgil Lenardi and Thomas, what's the German guy? Thomas Lang. And Bill Bruford said, "What's next? Drumming is an Olympic sport." So the technique thing really gets, blown out of proportion. But the thing is, in anything you do, if you're an athlete, that's why I tell my students, when you practice, it should be like going to the gym. And when you're out there doing the thing, you're not doing what you do in the gym. The gym is preparing you to be relaxed when you're playing.
Yeah.
Because if you're a musician, and I teach to everybody, I don't teach, I teach music and drumming as a spiritual healing thing, not as like an academic and you got to be a pro and whatever. That's all great, but that's not the reason to play music. And now I lost my train of thought. You see, I'm yammering on. And,
to be fair, that was going to be my next question, is sort of what is your approach to teaching?
Well, like anything else, you learn by mistakes, So you have to learn how to teach the students. So basically what I do, I find if, technique and rudiments and the basics of reading are the foundation, but in the beginning, if it's not fun for the student, that teaching mostly that you can lose the student.
Yeah.
So I try, usually when students come to me, they want to play songs, So I get them to analyze. I say, what's the bass drum doing? Don't play it, sing it. Like Alan, you were talking about the Indian thing. They sing the rhythm.
Conical, is that what it's called?
Yeah, my father taught me the rudiments, paradiddle, or the drag was go to bed, and the double drag was Tom, go to bed, Tom. So it was singing, My father's name was Tom. So I teach the student to sing the rhythm, and then do each part, just the bass drum, just the snare drum, just the hi-hat or ride. And then I get them to gradually put it together. So the important thing is for all musicians is to have the music in their body first before they go to play it. Because then, which is also why I think you have to read music, but I hate when musicians only follow the music because the music outside, not inside, and you're chasing the music as opposed to riding the wave of the music. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that answered your question, but I try to get the student
definitely
to analyze and count. In the beginning, you have to count to feel the space. Then it's all feeling after that.
Yeah, we actually run band workshops, and it's quite funny because in the band workshops, they're sort of playing with the guitar teacher, I sing, and we've got the bass teacher as well. And we just take the books away from them, and then some of them panic. You can see the look in their eyes because they're just so used to following the books. But we're like, no, you know how to play this, or like you just feel it, play along to the song. So I think that is quite nice to have that sort of element, feeling it, not necessarily just following what you're told to do. I think that's really important.
And also with charts, I say reading charts is like having a map. It's a map. So once you know where you're going, you don't need the map anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. So how have you found teaching sort of over the last year and a half with everything going online?
Well, I've been trying to do online, but with drumming, it's difficult because you need a camera. If you're teaching the drums and not just the hands, you need cameras for the hands and the feet.
Yeah.
So now this is what I'm happy about, because now I live 5 steps from a professional recording studio with 3 rooms, 2 sets of drums, isolated vocal booth and stuff. So I'll be able to do, because all of the stuff I've done in the past, even though it wasn't like done on the phone, it was done with a camera, the audio quality was terrible. And this is bad if there's any kind of, I'm Italian American. We're not the most subtle people in the world. So when you hit the drum, sometimes you can overload a cheap mic and you get distortion, even if you're not playing hard.
Yeah.
So, but it hasn't been easy. I mean,
No,
music has never been easy, and pandemic showed it's not easy, but it's necessary.
Yeah, I think I definitely think especially most people we teach have preferred coming back for in-person lessons. But it is, now that we've all learned how to do it, I think it is a good thing to keep doing and keep working at, because I think, it's sort of part of the future, isn't it? Although most people do want to play in a room together. It's been a good learning curve, basically, having to go and do it all online.
No, the other thing is, if you can reach a wider audience for any musician, that's great. But not just for them knowing you, it's for the exchange of energy and information with another human being.
Yeah.
Because you come out of it more enriched and they come out of it more enriched, Yeah. And it's when you can see the person like I can see you, there's almost that same transfer of energy. Like now it's only coming from here. When you're in front of a person, it comes out of their whole body.
Yes.
So it's almost as good as being in the room with someone.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about your band Boom. Is it trio?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to make Boom a kind of brand name. It's been the same name for like 10 years. The first project was a trio.
Right.
And before it was released, the Tony Williams, John McGough, and Jaco Pastorius trio of Doom was like a collector's thing. So I made a play on words for my first band, was called Trio of Boom.
Amazing.
And that's what we're called. The last gig of this leg on November 20th is at Oliver's Jazz Bar as part of the EFG Jazz Festival. And we're playing organ, in parentheses, Trio of Boom. But it's usually a quartet, but I think the music gets the best service in a quintet, because I write usually for saxophone.
Yeah.
But I like synth and guitar effects. The era that I grew up with, music was becoming more and more electric. So for the purists out there, I think jazz can very certainly be electric, and I like synth, and I like sort of string sounds and horn sounds, or fattening up the horns with the keyboards or whatever. But the band Boom, it started as a trio. They evolved into a quartet. I did a couple of quintet gigs. And this last release party at One World Plaza is the first without saxophone. The first trio was without saxophone.
Right.
All the rest were with saxophone. This is just guitar and keyboards, which is everything from Hammond, Rhodes to synth. And Donnie Pettis on the guitar. He's from Argentina. He's a guitar teacher here. He goes absolutely, first of all, he can play any style of music authentically, but he goes crazy with the sounds. It's like kind of, you can hear a lot of Bill Frisell and Pat Metheny in his playing, and Gilles Stoppé, the keyboard player. I call him the professor of sounds. He's a little younger than Danny and I, but his sounds are those 70s and 80s synth sounds, which I love. So this particular Boom project is a saxless quartet.
Nice. So do you have any projects or, more gigs coming up in the future?
Yeah, in November, I'm doing 4 gigs and 3 workshops.
Yeah.
But I play, before COVID hit here, I had about 7 running projects, and 3 of them worked regularly. One was every month, one was every 2 weeks, one was once a month, one was every week, one every 2 weeks, and one once a month. And then people would call me. So I had 2 piano trio gigs, was just jazz and all acoustic. I had 2 organ trio gigs, one jazz and one funk. I had my Boom project, which I still have, and a friend, Ascanieta, his project. So that was before COVID. Then our organ trio is still going. We play regularly here. I play with Boom, but not as regularly as I want, because it's more like, how should I say, for lack of a better word, art. It's harder to get a gig with original music than it is to get a gig playing standards or covers. And I play in a pop band. We have like an event band. We do corporate stuff and weddings and whatever, playing Amy Winehouse and whatever, Michael Jackson, you know. But yeah, when I go over there, if I can't bring the musicians who have recorded with me wherever I am, because I used to live in Vienna, I usually work with the same guys over there. And this particular trio, we've worked together a few times, if not several times. But it's not the usual boom band. Is Nick Meyer, Greg Heath, and Davide Mantovani, when I can get them, because they're really busy guys.
He's based in London, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's when you come here, right?
Yeah. And,
so you're gigging in London, are you?
Yeah, I'm at the Vortex on the 11th.
Amazing.
With a trio, and I'm at Oliver's with different format and different music on the 20th, and that's part of the EFG London Jazz Festival.
Are there any tickets left, just for anyone listening?
I believe they are. In fact, I think they're just going on sale right now.
Oh, amazing! And, I'll make sure to link them in the description.
Please do. Thank you for that.
So people can go grab them.
If you can, put my website, robertcastelli.com.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
Robert Castelli Boom, new releases, Bandcamp, and you can hear the music.
Definitely, yes. Okay, so I have one final question for you. I think we might be running out of time, but
no worries.
Do you have any tips for beginner drummers? So people starting to think about learning drums. Do you have any tips for them?
Yes, and I'm going to use an anecdote for this. One time I was doing a class. In the States, we use the word clinic or workshop. A master class is on a university level.
Right.
So this particular drum academy used the word master class. And as Alan, as you know, sometimes you set up these things 6 months, a year in advance. So we set this up in advance. And then like a month before, they said, Robert, we're not selling a lot of tickets. You know, we have a lot of interest, but the students think it's too advanced for them. So I said, give me a couple of days. And I found a quote from Confucius. And the quote is, what is the difference between the master and the student? And the difference is the master has failed more times than the student has tried.
That's great.
So to any young students, never stop. And mistakes are closer. It's like a no gets closer to the yes.
I really like that. That is great.
And follow your passion. Start with the passion. Don't start with the technique and the difficult thing. Start with the thing and then develop the technique from there.
Yeah.
Because
I agree. It's
all heart and soul first.
Yeah.
And if you keep the heart
and soul,
it's the love
for it first, isn't
you'll
it?
never lose the interest in the instrument.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. Well, I think we're running out of time, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I will link everything, your website and where you can get tickets in the description, and make sure to go and check Rob out. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.